Welcome. Thanks for joining us for yet another conversation of Coffee Shop Expresso. We ask that our videos have inspired positivity or provided some resolutions to certain concerns surrounding the topic of our conversations. Now, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, let's briefly take a look at a few things before we start our conversation. Um, so the last conversation that we had, I mentioned that you guys want to make sure that you get a chance to hear the following conversation that kind of touch bases on a few things, right? And I may have mentioned this on a previous video that may have not been the coffee shop espresso. It could have been random topics. And the great thing about that is, well, you know, spend a little time on it is that both provide, both are great conversations, and making them, have mentioning one or the other, because I can't really think which conversation that we had to where it was mentioned, but both, you know take a look at some great conversations and topics and things like that. But it just gives you an idea of, you if you get a chance to look at one, you might want to take a look at both. So it's one of those situations. But the thing that I want to share with you guys before we start our conversation is a few things. um, Marshmallow is a word that I'll be using today, referring to some different things. Gender, race, and maturity are also three words that I'll be using, in reference to some of the things that we'll be touching bases on within the conversation that we're having today. So I'm looking forward to doing it. And also, okay, yeah, did is something that we mentioned previously, and I believe did is to be known or referred to in the business of distractions, interruptions. What is the other one? Okay, state. So give me just a second, guys. Let me pull up some information. Yeah, so we got the reference here. So did is referred to as a distraction, interruption, and disturbance. We had a conversation about that previously, and I just wanted to mention a few things that will be talked about in this conversation also. You know, just letting you know that you may want to take a listen to the previous conversation to kind of put you at a place to want to be able to hear this conversation, and also just be able to understand where we're coming from with the conversation. So those are some words that will be used in reference to certain things that we'll be talking about today. And with that being said, guys, let's start our conversation. Coffee Shop Espresso.
This information is brought to you by HA-serviceGroup, a health insurance and financial investment company.
This is a preview reading of columnist Brittmeyer McNaughty. After a few glasses of wine with endless conversations, we agreed that this needs to happen more often, making my way to the kitchen to remove the corkscrew from the wine bottle, as my girlfriend tells us all about her recent pregnancy and becoming a mom, as we all listen in agreeance and like-minded support. Of course, this makes us all aunts now, one mentioned a shared laugh. The sound of wine penetrates an empty glass as my girlfriends and I indulge in some refreshments. Compliments filled the room. A brief silence as the company of one another was embraced. Endless conversation of girl talk among ladies. Direct our attention toward unplanned festivities. Have you seen this? Have you heard that? Still surrounded by the excitement of the occasion. I have an announcement after a glancing at her phone. By the time my girl had received a notification from her phone, ladies' night was in full effect. Not to mention we had trashed one bottle of wine with another uncorked on the table talking to our glasses. Elle not coming, responding abruptly, "Where is she?" Text sent. The one where your response is totally unacceptable. Another notification put us all at ease, as she read aloud, "Can't talk right now, call you later." We've all been friends since I could remember. With Elle not showing up, we wouldn't have a chance to get the details on some important things happening in her life. Since we are having such a great time, why stop there? After all, Elle might just walk through the door. She does things like that. Playing along, we sent a selfie of our girls, night hashtag wish you were here. Binge watching the latest did show another notification. It reads, "Oh, you guys kissy face. I have a surprise. I'll tell you later."
Ladies and gentlemen, as we start our conversation, we like to move things forward in the right direction. But I briefly wanted to kind of touch bases on a few things as we, kind of start the conversation. Something that's important, has been important, is home ownership, right? I want to tell you the story of a young woman who worked and, had come to the point where she had purchased a home for herself, right? And purchased a home for herself, and was doing what she needed to do to just continue to maintain the home that she purchased for herself. Unfortunately, she ended up losing the home. I believe the home was lost to money changing hands and not falling into the right hands to the point to where certain responsibilities were satisfied when it comes to her responsibility after purchasing a home, right? So it's a unfortunate thing, but things like this do happen. But my reason for saying that is not a negative one. Is that although that is a situation that happened, it's common. It's more common than what I'm about to mention to you guys when it also comes to homes, and that is individuals that have you know went as far as maybe selling it, went as far as selling their home when it comes to you know maybe starting or even building upon you know certain things that they have established for themselves when it comes to being a business owner. And what that is, that and it's not nothing negative. I'm saying that when you look at a business that that's pretty moderate, has a handful of employees, and these are certain things that may or may not have happened, or may not could happen when it comes to certain things, and it's strictly upon the individual. But I don't want the conversation to be viewed as something negative, because there are positive outcomes that have come from similar situations, although you won't hear it as much because not a lot of it's not a lot of you know detail and certain situations like that. So it's more common because of the home ownership status of things. Like you go out, you're looking for a home, things like this and things like that. But it's more, it's less of a you know it's more of a rarity when it comes to you coming across individuals that have went to the extent to either establish or build upon something that that they have established for themselves. Now again, what comes to mind when you're thinking about, excuse me for just a second. Yeah, so what we don't want you to think is something negative when you know you give thought to you know the conversation, right? And what I mean by that is, it doesn't have to be you're in over your head in debt. So maybe you have to sell your home to, no, it doesn't have to be that. Because I tell you that I've said it in previous conversations that there are small businesses out here that, you know, do well for themselves. So if I say a pretty moderate business with a handful of employees, listen, they who's to say that they have missed a beat doing anything? I could. It's very. It's a lot of situations and facts behind it that I can tell you when it comes to businesses of a certain size. And with that being said, it's and what we don't want you to do is a lot of times businesses can get discouraged when it comes to size and things like that. You know I, I don't want it to be something that you shy away from, when it comes to the operating sides of your business. There's a lot of times, it's just it is. So what I'm saying is there are resources, right? When I say resources, there are, you know, opportunities that look at not the size, but just at the business, you know, as a whole. So what that means is, listen, a company that has 100 employees could have something. It's not could. There's a strong possibility has something in common with a company that has a handful of employees, right? So what I don't want you to what I want you to understand is, don't what I'm saying is, with that being an example of a company that has 100 employees, has something in common with a company that has a handful of employees, right? That is saying, don't limit yourself in what the possible outcome could be for your business in the most positive way. So because you're limiting yourself of having a moderate business to, with a handful of employees, you could overlook the opportunity to double in size. Doubling in size is growth within the business that you're in, right? And that is always a plus. But again, we don't want you to look at the size of your business being a negative outlook, because if a moderate business is looking at, a business with 100 employees, you know, you know, how how do we know you're getting you know, a positive aspect from how and what you're looking at? So this is why I felt that, mentioning the woman who purchased a home for herself, and the outcome that resulted in her losing the home because, money changed hands and fell into the wrong hands, and certain things weren't satisfied. That's just, that's how that's what occurred in that situation. Which I'm saying that, the rarity in you having a conversation with someone that is willing to put it on the line. Listen, whether and it's not nothing negative, it's it's a rarity. It's a rarity under those circumstances, right? And I'm saying that because I heard an individual makes a significant amount, right? So individual makes a significant amount of money, and the individual was unaware the that when not unaware, but unaware to the situation that, excuse me guys, that taxes are associated with significant amounts of money. You have to pay them. You have to pay them. And what I mean by that is, so you there was a misunderstanding on how the situation had to play. Now it's very intricate, depending on the situation, who you're dealing with, who's handling certain things, and you know. But the fact is, right, the importance of what I'm saying now is similar to the young woman who purchased a home for herself. So the guy, who I'm speaking about, who made a significant amount of money, taxes came into play, right? And a lot of times, you don't know, or you lose track. Taxes are paid, and unfortunately, they have to be paid. So it results in, a lot of things happening. So what I'm saying is, a lot of times betting on yourself can be the result in, trusting, betting on the person standing next to you, right? And it results of having your best interest, right? Because let's just say whatever significant amount of money that was associated with the individual, let's just say, you know, taxes don't get paid, and there are individuals that can attest to situations to where, yeah, it could happen. It could happen. So there's a similarity in the two, in the three. There those are three different situations that I've briefly explained. But the similarities are, yes, home ownership is important. You know, the other similarity is that, hey, listen, this guy is concerned about making a significant amount of money, and where, you know you know money has to go here, money has to go there, and he's wondering. But you can ask yourself this 100 times over, and I'm pretty sure you'll get the same result and the same answer for yourself. Yo, would you want that significant amount of money to continue to be that significant amount of money, or would you rather that significant amount of money land a situation with the results of the young woman who purchased a home for herself? Because you know what, all of these things have in common, the listen, money can touch the wrong hands, and things cannot be satisfied that you're responsible for. Same with the individual, with the business. And all of these three situations are very similar, but they are very much different. So I'm not trying to force a fit here. I'm sitting, simply stating the similarities at the core, because when you begin to, you know get into the dynamics of the three, you're going to begin to you know fall in different, you know conversations. With that being said, guys, the kids have gotten ready to go back to school and everything like that. But let's not overlook that, it was we had some beautiful weather this summer. And I said a little while ago, the thing about summer is, you could make that, you could make that, you know that nice lemonade that has just that has the just amount of ice in it, and it's very refreshing, and it just lets you know that, listen, it's the summertime. Who knows where you can, what could happen, you know, one thing leads to another, and you're having a great time, right? And with that being said, we're more focused just on the beverage of choice would be the lemonade. The point that I'm making is, I recently had a iced tea that was infused with alcoholic beverage, right? And the thing about it is, I said to myself, when I first had tried it, I'm like, hey, what is this? And then I end up trying it again. And then as of most recently, it crossed my mind, and I said, hey, well, listen. I said, there's a lot of there's a lot of alcoholic beverages out there. I don't want to, just spoil it with any, specific names or anything like that. But there's a lot of alcoholic beverages out there that we have come to enjoy on such a day, whether it be celebrating, whether it just be the break of summer weather, type of things of that nature, you name it. And listen, if it's one of those type of situations, I'm sure that we wouldn't mind a refreshing drink, right? And I said to myself, with all these known um beverages of choice, right? When it comes to adult drinks, right? I say, where does this drink, at what category does this drink fall in? And we have to be honest. We have to be honest, and in order to reflect positivity, you have to be honest. And I said, well, the drink itself is it's okay. But if you're going to price this drink at a price point that reflects other alcoholic beverages that have not only the reputation of being that drink that's being brought to any type of adult activities or functions, you're gonna lose out, and you're gonna miss out on the you're gonna miss out on the opportunity. When I say the opportunity, you're gonna miss out on the bigger picture, right? And it's not, I don't even want to call it opportunity. I want to call it the responsibility to get to that point. Now let's just say, let's say we price it, we price it at the at the at the point that looks at those alcoholic beverages of choice that are going to be at parties, sporting events, things like that. When I say sporting events, I'm talking about from a fan standpoint. You're watching some type of sports game or something like that. You've been invited over with friends and things like that. These go-to drinks are the alcoholic beverages of choice that will be at these events. And you want to put a price point of those drinks on that drink, and that drink is not going to be at the event. It's not even going to meet you there. So the point that I'm making is, when you look at it from that standpoint, you know, you're going to you're going to there's going to be some things there. For whatever reason, those things are going to lead to, hey, listen, nah, you know, whether you're picking it up off the shelf, you know, to take it home, or whether it's from a business standpoint. And I say, what number? That because for me it was a me no. So I said, what number would get the attention of what this drink is? And that means that, hey, listen, if I'm out, you know, friends, you know, very social, you know, this drink can be a one of those, hey, can I have another one of these? Hey, this was great. What was in this? You know, what is this made with type of situations, right? And I said, man, listen, that number would be between $5 and $8, and that's for a let me see. I think it was a let me see. I believe it was like an 8 ounce. I believe it was like an 8 ounce canned beverage. So I say about between $5 and $8 for a pack. Mm. So $5 to $8 for a pack of what? 6 to 12. A package 6 to 12 canned packaging. Right. Let me say it better than what I did. So I put it at six to no, I put it at $5 to $8 for a can pack of 8 to 12 alcoholic beverages packaged. And that's gonna get you that right there is a starting point. Is a starting point, and it's also the starting point as we push forward the conversation. Now, in previous conversations, I mentioned, even earlier in this one, I mentioned a did. What do we call a did? How do we look at a did? And we look at these things as disturbance, interruptions, and distractions. Now, with that being said, moving the conversation forward, we're going to talk about a few things, right? Now, I mentioned that you want to be here and you want to have this conversation. You want to be here for this conversation as we talk about the three things that brought us here together, and that is gender, race, maturity. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the three things that we are set to have a conversation about, we are set to have a conversation about is the gender, race, and maturity. Three very simple words, but I assure you that they are very difficult. Now, gender. These are the understandings of what needs to happen when it comes to, you know, establishing, pursuing, things that you are looking to fulfill when it comes to being a business owner. And if you, so right now, what we understand is that, hey, listen, whether you have a handful of employees or you employ many, we're not speaking to the size of your business. We're saying that, hey, listen, that if you are looking to build upon what you have established for yourself, excuse me, you know, I have these moments to where I just want to, make sure, we have, the suitable, words to kind of identify what it is that we're meaning in this very moment. So if you're looking to build upon the things that you have, you know, you know, established for yourselves, this is the conversation that we're having. Not, your employee ratio. It's not that, but do understand this though. Do understand this, that it's a conversation. It is a conversation, and you you want it to where that isn't the end all be all. And to have that conversation, you have to sit across from an individual that can articulate the differences. So these things are a need and a must know when it comes to whatever point that you're at. Whether you are whether you are looking to make the proper steps, or you have gotten to a point to where, listen, you are looking to build upon things that you have already established for yourselves. So whether you are behind the establishment point, or you have already built upon, or you're looking to build upon things that you have established, it's what the business identifies with. But it's that conversation that you have to have. And again, these three things are important. They're simple words, but they are very difficult. Now, I talk about, just being, upfront with a lot of things. And guys, can can I state the facts for you, right? Let's not listen. So when I said previously, you want to make sure that you get a chance to check out the next conversation, because we're going to talk about some specific things. So the things that came to mind when I said gender, race, and maturity. Listen, let's not and I wanted to be clear about understanding that this is a conversation that you want to be present for, because you're not going to hear it anywhere else. If you're getting it from somewhere else, there's a total misinterpretation of what my intentions are when I stated the the topics of what the next conversation would be. But it's okay though. It's quite natural. It's like, what in the world is this guy talking about? Gender, race, and maturity. What? So it allow it what you know it You could have an opinion just off the topics, but then you know you're able to get a better understanding in this very moment that we are specifically talking about things that we want you to not hear from no one else but us. Because anything outside of having this specific conversation is going to lead to a misinterpretation and so forth and so on. And we don't want that. We have nothing but the, you know, highest level of, the highest level of, what's the word? So let's go with this, right? As I mentioned, a lot of these things are not rehearsed, right? We have some things that we want to make sure that we talk about. That's why you're here in the paper. But I lost my footing on, just having, a natural positive, you know, reaction to what it is that you want to see for your business. But I was totally, I was stumped, when I was gonna say I was gonna say a word that I didn't want to, relate. So I was thinking like, what other word could I use? And I didn't have anything. But yeah, we want nothing. We look to nothing but, you know, you know, a more positive outcome to, you know, the things that you see for yourself, right? And gender, right? Gender, we will look at differences. Race, we will look at comfort, maturity, understanding. And as we look at those things, we're going to push the conversation forward in the direction of, you know, the actual business. So if you can hear that, that is us knocking on the door of your business, wherever you are. And what we want to talk about, three things that we want to talk about. We want to talk about standstill, complacency, and circulate. So if it is to if it is to be misinterpreted, the three topics that we previously mentioned, it's very common that this can be misinterpreted also. So allow me to go through the three examples as I do so in detail. Standstill. Standstill is a situation to where it is a it is a it's a happening. Meaning that exactly what I mean. But although it's a happening, you know, you want to make sure that you know what's happening as we move forward to complacent. So are you able to tell me what, what's next? Where are you exactly, and then because now you're responsible. You're responsible to have these answers. You're responsible to have these answers. You're responsible to have these answers for who you are responsible for. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to answer that question for those that you are responsible for? Circulate. How are we, communicating? How are we communicating around the workplace? So how are we keeping our employees in the now? Things take place within the work environment. How are we circulating the information? How are we communicating with one another? Standstill is a happening. No need for a further further in detail, because that's what it is. Individuals that that have experienced certain situations understand exactly what I'm saying. But in the midst of a standstill, make sure you don't become complacent to where you tell what happens next. Because if you're going to hear it from me, understand that you're going to hear it from the people that you work with. How are we communicating, right? So, in those very three things can be what can be a reflection, not a what. Yeah, it definitely could be a what. As in, what do you mean? A reflection to what you have, what you have, you know, what you have and have not done. A reflection to what you have or have not done. And what I mentioned earlier was I I'm refrain excuse me, I'm kind of getting away from I'm kind of getting away from using the word opportunity in this conversation, because we're not talking about opportunity. We're talking about the responsibilities of certain things, right? So when I mentioned, you know, the different situations, earlier on with the woman who purchased a home for herself, the individual that was looking to sell their home, the individual that had come in contact with a significant amount of money. So it's about the responsibility of the things. Now, so as I mentioned, handful of employees, we don't want you to limit yourself. And that could be various reasons. That could be different things, right? But we don't want you to limit yourself is the bottom line of everything. So yes, of course, there's a big difference. A handful of employees to someone that has 100 employees is a very big difference. You start at the number, then I'll give you the difference. So what I mean by that is there are I did I said that we're not going to mention opportunities. There are things that things is not even a word. There are things happening that do not look at the number of employees, but look at your business. And this is coming from an individual that wants the best for your business and what you have set out for yourself, right? We don't want you to miss out. We don't want you to miss out on these things happening for your business, right? But understand this. Handful of employees. Let's take it a step further. Hold on, let me make sure. Okay. So, with that being said, we're going to continue with we have three more examples. The next one after circulation would be plausible accommodations. A handful of employees could not identify with a employer that employees 100 individuals. It's that simple. It's not even complicated. It's that simple. What are you what are you offering? When I say offering, what do you provide that next candidate that walks through the door? Speaking of what do you what do you provide that next candidate that walks through the door? Hiring process. And a hiring process is straightforward. We're looking to hire some we're looking to hire some individuals, we're looking to hire someone, and you list the duties that you are looking for the hire to fulfill, right? Pretty straightforward. So we have plausible accommodations. What are you providing the next candidate that walks through your door? The hiring process. Explain that to me. And this is where we want to hear from you. It doesn't have to whatever the hiring process is. I want to hear it. I want to hear it to the point to where if it's as straightforward as I just indicated. Listen, trying to hire someone, the position that we're hiring for, these are the requirements. This is what we're looking for you to handle, so forth and so on. And as we are on the hiring process, we're also going to talk about, equalized circumstances. Equalized circumstances puts us back in the same, it puts us back at the start of the conversation that we may or may not have had. So plausible accommodations, what are you providing the next candidate that walks through your door? Hiring process, you know, give it to me. If it's as simple as if it's as simple as, the indication that I provided, just tell me a little bit more about it. And then the equalized circumstances, it circles back around to the starting point of the conversation. Excuse me, of the conversation. And one thing that I want to mention is, so what I did mention earlier is so let's take, so here's what I would want. This is a conversation, this is a positive conversation that will lead to positive outcomes. But because that is to that's a fact, what I want to do is, if there's an individual out there who said, you know what, I've been that person. I've maybe sold my home to, take that money and invest in things that I've established, when it comes to a negative situation, to where you say, I was that person, that experience, uh, the circumstances in a negative way. I've been that person that have, put my home up to take that money and invest it into things that I have established, so forth and so on. I want you to reach out and pick up the phone and give me a call, because those results then, I guarantee you, will not be the results now. So I'm not um I'm not moved by the situation. I embrace it. And by embracing it, I'm saying that the then is not the now. When I say I embrace it, you don't have to be that individual that shies away from, when I say shy, that drifts backwards from a conversation due to certain things like, hey, listen, I have a moderate business. I employ a handful of individuals. Because that's not a problem for me. That is not a problem for me. And when you pick up the phone and call me, I'm not gonna let it be a problem for you. So now you're like, okay, well, until you realize that, hey, now the last example was equalized circumstances, right? And what I want to talk to you about is the thing of the thing of oh oh yeah, so we're coming up on a word that we haven't got a chance to talk about: marshmallow. And I'm trying to see, because I have some things here, and I wanna see if we have enough time to kind of go through them and talk about them. Okay, so um, marshmallow is a common word, when you in a negative way. So let's go ahead and in a negative way, when you are speaking to different markets. But what I'm referring to, as it's two words there. So I'm going to give you the we're gonna stay with marshmallow first, right? The thing with a marshmallow is, it's very hard to build upon. Marshmallows are they're very soft, right? They're very soft, you know. Some people like it with hot cocoa, s'mores, things like that. Go absolutely great with either one, but not when you're talking about business. So the thing about a marshmallow is if you leave a marshmallow out, they get hard. They get hard, but their outer part of the marshmallow is hard, and then the inside still the same, still a marshmallow, right? And that point I'm making is, you could have there could be a business, right? There could be a business, right, on the street. One business on the street. Then there's two businesses on the street, right? And those two businesses on the street. But before those two businesses on the street, there was one business on the street, right? And now there's two businesses on the street. And the thing about that is, you know, one of the businesses could be a marshmallow. What is a marshmallow? A marshmallow is a business that only receives any type of activity due to the activity that's happening next door. You can get the addresses mixed up, and hey, listen, oh no, that's next door. Hey, look, I'm looking for, oh, that's next door. So what happens is the traffic of it all is it's result in the inner part. So you're looking at a walk up location that is receiving traffic, but it is, it's established is not the word, but it's not to the point, it's not fulfilling. What so when you think about fulfilling, what comes to mind? So when you think about fulfilling, what comes to mind? You think about the you think about a person going into a place and then a person leaving out of a place. you know I'm not gonna say better, I'm gonna say satisfied. You can be better, you can be better, you can be, a lot of things when you come back out. But the thing that we all want to put in perspective is the satisfaction. And you don't have to feel it right away, but is that what happened when you entered and you exited the business location? So what's similar? So now we're talking about a few things. Talk about a few things now, guys. And I want you to stay with me. I want you to stay with me on this. So now what we have talked about, we talk about this, we talk about that, and now we've gotten to the point to where we have spoken about it being one business on the street. There's one business, now there's two businesses on the street. Now we're talking about the traffic that's coming in and is being directed to the business next door. Now we're talking about, the fulfillment of when you enter and then you exit the location, or you entering and then you exiting it with the satisfaction. I would say satisfied, but that's not the word that we're looking for, right? So what word what so what I'm talking about, what has a similar meaning? Ladies and gentlemen, inflation. When you're looking at certain things, you might don't you may not agree with it. And that could be so, but is it a fact? So the fact that inflation has something to do with it, because you can walk into an establishment and you can feel that what when you exited the establishment, you didn't feel satisfaction. There was no fulfillment. Meanwhile, how do you put a what so the value of what you have experienced is what? So can I put so what will happen? And let's go back to the alcoholic beverages. If I put those alcoholic beverages on the shelves in stores at the same price point that you're gonna see other alcoholic beverages of choice at functions, adult activities, watching sports games, all these things, clubs, you name it. If it's an adult activity that allows alcoholic beverages, these things are going to be there. So what I want to take it, so we've talked about different things, and here is where we will kind of take a look at some different things right now, because it was brought to my attention the other day that a company that has 50,000 employees was said to have fallen on bad terms due to bad financial decisions. And instead of fact checking that, that can be a fact to a certain extent. But we're talking about right now, so we're talking about a company that employs 50,000 individuals. And it's very different. Because now again, we're talking about things, but then you have to understand what you have to understand what are we talking about. We're talking about a company that has 50,000 employees, was said to have fallen on bad terms due to bad financial decisions. Again, that could be a fact to a certain extent, but then when you're talking about, certain things, you have to understand, the lining, the alignment of, activities. You have to understand the alignment of activities. And and that could be, the that could be a lot of things. But the alignment of activities, it varies. It's not a simple thing. And if you think that, hey, listen, um, if you think you're gonna have a mentality of certain things, It's not gonna get you far. And what I mean by that is, the the do it yourself, idea about things. The young woman purchased a home for herself. It's a beautiful thing. Money touched the wrong hands, and the result of the situation was that she no longer owned the home that she purchased for herself. The gentleman came across a specific a specific amount of dollars that required responsible actions behind it. So you have to make a decision. You have to be it's certain things that that look to different things that you are responsible for just being the being responsible for being the initiative, whether it be the first step or the first action, either one. But the mentality of of doing it yourself. Listen, I have to be honest with the conversation. I don't doubt that you would speak with someone. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't doubt that you would speak with someone. They could tell you this, they could tell you that, they could tell you a lot of things. But this is not this is a positive conversation to a positive, outcome. When I say an outcome, I want nothing but, the best when it comes for things that you are, you set out to do for yourself, you're involved in, and things of similar, actions. And business is business. Let's do something. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this conversation again was a positive outlook to certain things that we've talked about. I look forward to continuing our conversations in the most positive manner. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Agent Shaun Lynch. I look forward to speaking with you.